And as a reminder, for anybody that's new, Bloom Kentucky is a coalition of Kentucky youth advocates and is powered by grant makers across the state. If we've got a few grant makers on here, if you want to wave, thank you so much for being here today. And we are united by a shared commitment to end adverse childhood experiences and promote resilience through systemic change. And the way we do that is we focus on forward-thinking policy solutions and strategic investments that address root causes of adversity, strengthen those protective factors, and build brighter futures for all of Kentuckians. We are officially on day 15 of the 60-day session. Is anybody celebrating? We're a quarter of the way through, which is pretty exciting. And we've officially seen a budget bill drop. So House Bill 500 is the House's budget bill this year and was filed yesterday. So be sure to follow along KYA's communications for more updates as the budget develops. And I see folks are introducing themselves, dropping their organization as well as their county of residence in the chat. So feel free to continue doing so. Our goals for today's call include educating folks that may not be aware of our priorities about those priorities, giving you all some opportunities today to take action, and providing you a quick update on some of the work that's happening within the Bloom Kentucky space. So with that, we'll go ahead and talk about the Bloom policy agenda for those that may not be aware. So as a part of the Blueprint for Kentucky's Children and in alignment with the strategies that were outlined in the Bloom Kentucky Economic Impact Report that we put out this past summer that highlighted Kentucky's nearly $300 million economic burden, Bloom Kentucky's advocating for the following state priorities that you see today. And we're going to talk about each of those. But the first one is around promoting housing stability by making common sense changes to the eviction process. The second, establishing common sense standards around when families can be disconnected from utilities. The third one, assessing proposed legislation through family and child impact statements. Four, investing in addressing diaper needs and supporting youth mental health by creating mechanisms to direct those social media settlement dollars toward positive childhood experiences. So with that overview, I'll kick it to my colleague, Hannah McCarty, to talk a little bit about promoting housing stability.
Thanks, Hannah. Hello, everyone. My name is Hannah McCarty. I'm a policy and advocacy analyst at Kentucky Youth Advocates, and I work with the Bloom Coalition. And I focus on economic security, which makes up 3 of our 5 Bloom policy priorities this year. And the first one is promoting family housing stability by making common sense changes to the eviction process. So just a little bit of background. An eviction record is created when a landlord files a claim. And even if that case is dismissed or doesn't result in an eviction, that tenant has a permanent mark on their housing record, which can be viewed by any prospective landlord when applying for future housing. And oftentimes, landlords aren't willing to rent to people with an eviction on their record. And in fact, up to 55% of filings in Kentucky between 2022 and 2024 did not result in an eviction judgment, yet those households still had an eviction on their record, creating future barriers to housing. And we know that this is an issue that disproportionately impacts children. In fact, the average family facing eviction in Kentucky has at least one child in the household. Furthermore, sometimes minors are even named on eviction filings. They're not old enough to sign a lease, but sometimes it'll happen as a just an error, but that will still cause irreversible damage to their housing record before they're even old enough to sign a lease. So we are really excited to see that this priority has been filed in both the House and the Senate. So in the Senate, Senator Gerald Neal filed Senate Bill 83, and in the House, Representative Whitten filed House Bill 388. And we're excited to see that House Bill 388 has actually been assigned to the House Judiciary Committee. And so we definitely encourage you to reach out to your legislators, ask them to support this bill. But especially if your representative serves on the House Judiciary Committee or is perchance the chair, please reach out to them and ask them to support this bill and that you'd like to see it passed out of committee. In just a second, I will drop the links to some of those bill numbers, as well as the link to the committee membership, so you can make sure or check out if your legislator serves on that committee. Additionally, We recently developed KYA has been working on creating a Kentucky eviction data dashboard. So if you're interested in learning more about that issue, I will drop a link to that in the chat as well, where you can look at the impact of eviction in your district. Right, thank you, Hannah. The second economic security policy priority is around establishing common sense standards for when families can be disconnected from utilities due to non-payment. So in fact, 1 in 3 households in Kentucky struggle to afford the basic cost of utilities, making it harder for families to keep up with their bills and increasing the risk of utility disconnection. When families struggle to afford basic utilities, children are at a higher risk for hospitalization, respiratory conditions such as asthma, and heat-related illness or death. Utility disconnection can be really dangerous, especially weeks like we're seeing with really low temperatures and winter storms across the Commonwealth, and really just supports the need for why Kentucky needs these protections. So Kentucky can join over 40 states that already have weather-related disconnection protections in place to prevent families from losing vital utilities during extreme and dangerous weather conditions. So there are 2 bills that have been filed that aim to establish these protections for families. We've seen Senate Bill 88, filed by Senator Chambers Armstrong, which requires utility providers to establish disconnection policies for extreme weather and report them to the Public Service Commission, which serves as the regulatory body for utilities. And then also House Bill 377, which was filed by Representative Whitten, which seeks to establish extreme temperature standards for disconnection of utility service during extreme cold and extremely hot temperatures as well. So we are excited to see that this is reflected in both chambers, as well as House Bill 377 has been assigned to the House Natural Resources and Energy Committee. So once again, we encourage you, if your legislator serves on that committee, to reach out to them. It is still awaiting a hearing. And so reaching out to them to voice your support, as well as if you know that if you are connected to your representative serves as the chair, definitely encouraging them to put this on the agenda for an upcoming committee meeting. I'll be dropping that in the chat in a second as well. I'll pass it back to the other Hannah for the next priority.
Thank you. Our next priority is all around assessing proposed legislation through family and child impact statements. You all might be familiar with other legislative reports, such as fiscal impact statements, which examine potential impacts on the state budget, correctional impact statements that examine the impact on our state's correctional system, or even local mandate statements, which examine the potential impact on local governments. So it makes so much sense to have statements that examine the impacts on family and children. And we know from our research and what we've learned that these types of statements, they strengthen decision-making on policies by using research and data to provide a more comprehensive understanding of the impact of potentially proposed legislation. And we know that by requiring such data-driven assessment of how legislation may affect various determinants of family well-being, Kentucky can better consider how proposed legislation may increase risk for ACEs or adverse childhood experiences, or even promote access to positive childhood experiences or PACEs. And so if you're not familiar with these types of statements, often they're put together by staff and government agencies. Typically, they may include domains that are agreed upon or questions, and then partners, philanthropic groups, universities, and other expertise-related groups can contribute often to those statements. We are excited to share that there is a bill, House Bill 51 by Representative Baker, that embodies the spirit of family and child impact statements. And this bill has been assigned to House Family and Children's Committee. So if your legislator serves on this committee, please reach out and ask them not only to support this, but to hear it in committee. And with that, kicking it back to you, Hannah.
All right, thank you. Our next policy priority has to do with diapers. So, and really just asking the legislature to invest in addressing diaper needs. Diapers are essential for infant and toddler health and hygiene, yet many families with young children experience diaper need and struggle to afford enough diapers to keep their children clean and healthy. When families can't struggle to afford diapers, parents and caregivers may have to change diapers less frequently or reuse dirty diapers, which can lead to costly and painful infections like UTIs and diaper rash. Diaper need can also keep parents and caregivers out of work, as most child care centers require parents to provide a daily supply of disposable diapers. And increasing access to clean diapers for families is associated with improved infant and child health, caregiver work attendance, increased family income, and reduced medical expenses. So many benefits to ensuring that parents and families have these necessary resources. So there are a few bills that have been filed that aim to address diaper need in Kentucky. That includes Senate Bill 58, filed by Senator Chambers Armstrong, and House Bill 302, which has been filed by Representative Grossell. Those both seek to establish a diaper trust fund to address diaper need in Kentucky. And so to establishing a trust fund to send diapers to support and send diapers to different access programs across the state. We have also seen a bill filed in the House by Representative Brown Jr. to remove Kentucky sales tax on diapers. So while we are still waiting for Senate Bill 58 to be assigned to committee, House Bill 302 has been assigned to the House Families and Children Committee and is awaiting a hearing. So we encourage you to reach out to your representative if they serve on that committee. House Bill 114 has also been assigned to a committee. It has been assigned to the House Appropriations and Revenue Committee. So we encourage you to reach out to your legislator and ask them to support this if they serve on that committee. And I will drop the links to that in the chat in just a second. Thanks,
And our,
Anna.
and our last priority is around supporting positive youth development through incoming social media settlement dollars. So many of you may be aware of the major multi-district litigation that's currently moving forward. It's against social media companies that consolidates hundreds of cases that were filed by adolescents, parents, school districts, and attorney generals, including Kentucky's very own Russell Coleman. And the primary claims within this lawsuit are that the platforms are, quote, defectively designed and platforms failed to warn users of the risk associated with youth use and have harmed youth mental health. So we're anticipating that, like other settlements that have occurred, the Juul, the tobacco, opioid, that Kentucky may be receiving a settlement, and we are trying to be proactive in ensuring that those funds are directed to mitigate the impact of the respective harm, specifically going towards positive youth development and supporting youth mental health. So we are currently awaiting a bill to be filed, but as soon as we have one, we will send an update. It will be included in our Bloom Kentucky listserv and sent out to our community of folks that follow along. But with that, hopefully you have got a few ideas of how you can take action today, but we've got a few other engagement opportunities for advocates throughout this legislative session. So on this slide, you will see engagement opportunities for advocates. One of my favorite tools that we have at KYA is our bill tracker. We'll make sure that you have all of these links, but I bookmark this in my browser so that I can check and see how bills are progressing throughout the legislative process. So that tracker will tell you what the bills are, what initiative they're part of, as well as will link to their respective fact sheets. So great tool. We'll be sure to send that link over. Also, I would encourage you all to sign up for action alerts. Anybody that has been involved in Frankfort knows that sometimes things can move fast, and it's important to have action and reach out during those times in which you can advocate either for or against. So be sure to sign up for those action alerts, and you'll get the latest action request when you sign up. Join us in March for Children's Advocacy Week events. Engagement is going to look a little bit different this year with the Capitol under construction, but we're still hosting opportunities to advocate and connect with policymakers. We've really had to be creative this year with our our typical Children's Advocacy Day. So more details on that to follow. We always encourage folks to contact your state legislators via phone, email, or in person. We always say you got to know them before you need them. So if you don't have that relationship, reach out and start building that relationship. And if you're going to reach out about supporting a bill, I think it's always important that your correspondence that you include that you're a constituent, you include the bill number that you're advocating for or against, and you make it personal. Why? Do you have a story that connects with that particular priority? And if so, include that, because the more personal, we know that that's the most effective way to communicate with legislators. You can write an op-ed about issues that matter to you. Given the weather that we've had in Kentucky, maybe that utility priority really connects with you. There could be an opportunity to lift something like that up in your region. You can reshare educational content about policy priorities. The one thing I love about KYA's blogs and media that goes out is at the very bottom, you'll see links to all the social medias, and all you have to do is click that link and it will open it up in your social media and you can share directly from there. LinkedIn, Facebook, awareness is a great way to also be an advocate. And then you can also tune in to live coverage of the General Assembly, including the committee meetings and the Senate and House chambers. The LRC YouTube is a great resource, and then KET, you can watch those committee meetings and chambers live through both of those resources. And with that, I'm going to pause and I'm going to take a moment and have everybody in the chat drop at least one way you plan to be engaged this session. So I'll give everybody just a minute. Maybe you've already been engaged, but how do you plan to be engaged over the next 45 days? Awesome. I see some great responses already in the chat. Bill tracking through another agency. That's great. There's a lot of different groups that may have expertise in particular areas and they track those respective bills. So that's awesome. The bill tracker, contacting legislators. Wonderful. Children's Advocacy Week. Can't wait to see you there, Mike. Legislative meetings. I know, Dustin, you have been busy this session already with lots of conversations, contacting my legislator, providing weekly updates. Absolutely. Barry's going to plan to contact state legislators via email, phone, and in person. All right. We've got some events we're attending in February and touching base with legislators. Well, thanks everybody for sharing those. I will offer, if it is of interest to you and your organization, KYA does offer advocacy trainings. We're more than happy to come out and help equip your organization, your community with tools to help you better be effective advocates. So if that's of interest to you, certainly something we can follow up on. And at this time, I'll open up if there are any questions that you may have from what we've covered so far.
Hannah, this is Barry. My question is, in contacting legislators, is it better, particularly if let's just say you're going to do an email or a phone, is it better to package all of the interest in the different bills in one message or have multiple messages for each one of them?
That's a great question. I always think clear and concise is better than, a long email that you're going to have to scroll, given the nature of constituent correspondence. I see Dustin nodding his head as well. I will say I tend to be someone that contacts my representatives throughout the process. So, for example, when bills were filed, immediately I was saying, I'd like you all to support these bills. And then as they progress through committees, where relevant, I will then reach out again at that time and say, these bills are coming your way. I'd like you to express support. So I think like little touch points even throughout session. I'll open it up to other advocates on here. Dustin, you may have some tips to share. Mike, you may have tips to share as well. Feel free to come off mute and share if you've got any advice as well.
Well, that was helpful. Thank you, Hannah.
Go ahead, Dustin.
I was just going to say, I think what you said is right. Any kind of sort of personal connection you can make too is really helpful. Also, a famous Kentucky advocate, Dr. Sheila Schuster, would say a handwritten note is always remembered. So that definitely, I think, goes a long way. But yeah, I think just consistent FaceTime and engagement with your legislator is probably the most important thing. And then, frankly, the best time to do that is outside of session, when they're in district, around town, just so they see you back home and you're a recognizable face and name. But during session, I think what Hannah says spot on.
I agree with all that. And I think, Hannah, the way you described it, when you have multiple bills, makes sense as to maybe in the initial email, again, depending on how well you know your legislator, go ahead and mention several. And then as the individual bills are coming up, send them another follow-up with an alert that it's coming up to your committee or for a floor vote or whatever. I would add too, if Hannah, if you have this information, their staff folks have somebody else in their office that's tracking your emails that maybe you can begin to have direct contact with.
Great points. I also think it's important that you include a signature line with your name. And I think sometimes it can be helpful to note the districts in which you live to make sure that they are like, ooh, this is my constituent. They are paying attention. And then I also think a subject line can be really helpful that says something like support, and then you list out the bill numbers. Or oppose if you have bill numbers that you oppose. But I think that subject line can be really powerful in drawing attention, supporting or opposing certain bills. Thank you, Mike and Dustin, for that input. Also, too, something that I do is I follow my legislators on social media. So one thing that I noticed is my representative is having office hours on the weekends. And so one thing I might try to do during session is just go in and check in on her. Just ask how she's doing. Maybe with nothing on my agenda, but just an opportunity to further build that relationship with her. So I encourage you, if you do participate on social media, following your respective legislators is always a great opportunity to see what they're doing and if they have any opportunities available for engagement. All right. I did see your question, Shante, in the chat related to positive childhood experiences. If you want to reach out to myself or McCarty, we'll drop our emails in the chat. We would be more than happy to do a presentation for you, your educators, your organization, community, whatever need you might have. All righty. Thanks, folks. And then we'll wrap up. We've got a few opportunities for you to plug into Bloom Kentucky's work. We love going to communities across the state and educating folks on the concept of ACEs, why policy is important, and how folks can get involved in the legislative process. It can be really intimidating at times for folks when thinking about reaching out to legislators. So how do we go out and train folks and then give them opportunities to practice? And that's what we love to do, is really equip folks with skills to do that work. We also have an awesome opioid data dashboard that has various indicators that folks can use to identify needs in their community and think about how they can best spend their local opioid abatement dollars. Bloom Kentucky has been doing a lot of work across the state related to the opioid abatement funds. So if you have interest at all in advocacy at the local level, or even would like technical assistance with the state application, that is something that we offer. Next, we've got a great report that I mentioned that was released last year. It's the economic impact of ACEs in Kentucky. There's an executive summary that's on the Bloom Kentucky website and the longer report, but that is a great tool in terms of using that to advocate with legislators about if we work and have these types of policies or investments, we could be saving X amount of dollars. And we know that Kentucky has nearly a $300 million economic burden due to ACEs. So check out that tool. And then the last bullet point is if you're interested in giving financially, we have some great opportunities for you to sponsor a Children's Advocacy Week event. So if that's of interest to you, you can reach out to myself or my teammates on here today, and we'd be more than happy to get you connected and plugged in that day. And with that, I'll close, but I'll stay on if there are any other questions that you all may have. But otherwise, to the full group, I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week. I hope everyone stays warm, and I hope everyone stays well. So if you ever need anything from our team, feel free to reach out.
Thank you.